This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DTV Digest. I'm your host, Mike Parkin, and joining me tonight are Richard Hawes.
Hello, everybody.
And Stephen Lockridge.
Hello.
Awesome. This week we're kicking off with a film I've been really looking forward to seeing, JAKOB'S WIFE, starring Larry Fessenden and Barbara Crampton. Then we have Silencio, the Protege, starring Michael Keaton and Maggie Q. And then The Serpent, going to be really interesting talking about that one. The short shot this week is Fueled, and our DTV throwback is Savaged. So without further ado, let's crack on. Our first review then is JAKOB'S WIFE. Anne Feder has long been the dutiful wife for her husband, Jacob, who is the local minister. However, one night, Anne is attacked by a vampire, which gives her a new perspective on life, love, and marriage. I'm kicking this straight over to Steve. What did you make of JAKOB'S WIFE?
I just found this enjoyable. It was really good. I saw the trailer a while back and was interested, and then found out it's a Shudder original, remember rightly. So I was a bit disappointed because I thought I wouldn't get to see it because I don't have a subscription. But then, obviously, it's coming out on DVD, and we were sent a copy. And I thought it was actually really good. What I was surprised in is the way that it's not just a horror. There's more to it than that. You know, obviously there's the marriage between the vicar and minister and his wife, and the way that the master vampire is trying to not be a feminist, but take away men's ruling of the women that she's changing and stuff like that. And yeah, I just thought it was really good. The only thing that I didn't really like about it was the gushing blood, if you know what I mean, with the vampire attacks.
Yeah.
It kind of turned into like a Japanese style ninja film with all the blood spurting out, you know. That bit kind of took me out of the film a little bit. But apart from that, I found it really enjoyable. I thought it was really good.
Cool. Rich, what did you make of JAKOB'S WIFE?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because, like Steve says, it's more than just one thing. It is like almost Ginger Snaps is kind of the one that always pops into my head, but it's like it's an empowerment story. You know, it's this woman who, you know, just sort of comes out of us. This thing happens and that brings it out, and you know, she becomes a much stronger character and stuff. But also, yeah, it's this portrait of a marriage kind of movie. You know, it's about the title's quite interesting because you know, she is the focus, but by virtue of the way the title, JAKOB'S WIFE, it puts her in the background. You know, she is a supplementary figure, and it's all about her sort of stepping forward. And yeah, the vampire, I like the OTT gore stuff. It does sort of, it is a mix because it does sort of feel like it's coming in from a different kind of movie. But I did really enjoy it. It was quite. There's a lot of really good stuff in there for the gore fans. Barbara Crampton, who was a sort of a driving force behind this film, I think to a large extent. You know, she was. I think she's quite a proactive producer on it, and you can see what attracted. I mean, she goes all in on this. You know, it's like it's a great performance. Larry Fessenden is really good, and it's just the sort of the funny interplays that they have, and you know, the little quirks and stuff. Like nothing sort of things don't necessarily play out how you would expect. You know, the sort of it takes the same sort of angle as something like a Rose that we watched, but without the sort of
misery,
or without the misery, or the heartbeat.
Yes,
you know, you know the one I mean. So it touches on these very familiar themes, but it does it in a very kind of lighter, playful way. Now, in terms of the vampire stuff, I thought I think it was Amelia, the young girl who gets turned at the start. I thought her, makeup effects and everything were fantastic. The master vampire, all the vampires have got this kind of Salem's Lot design.
Yeah.
Nosferatu, Salem's Lot kind of thing going on. And I thought the master vampire, just the makeup effects just I don't know if it was by design or anything, but it did look a bit cheap. Not as impressive as some of the other, say Amelia's makeup and that looked a bit better. For me. And what else? No, I think that's pretty much the end of my comments for now. Yeah, it's really good. It's really good.
It certainly is. I've been looking forward to this for a while. Barbara Crampton's in it. She's very interesting. Obviously, she made a mark in the 80s with Reanimator and From Beyond, and largely disappeared, or seemed to disappear off my radar for a long time until she popped up in We Are Still Here, which if you haven't seen it, you really should.
I think you sent me a copy to watch.
I think so. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
bloody good. But in that, and
she's become one of the stalwarts now.
She has, yeah. There's that other one we saw, wasn't there, about the baby switched at birth? Remember that one?
The Reborn.
The Reborn one. Yeah, she's
done other stuff like Beyond the Gates and
but she was really good in that. In that particular one, she really shone. And in this, she is absolutely superb. But firstly, as the sort of put upon wife, who's her husband keeps talking over her and and interrupting her, and she's slowly coming out of her shell, sort of thing. Even without the vampire, she was risking seeing an old flame and this sort of thing going on.
Yeah, who was the guy from Nightmare on Elm Street? Which I was like watching it, I was thinking, is that guy from Nightmare? And then I watched the credits and I was like, yeah, it actually is. It's like he's obviously aged quite considerably, but Robert Russler, I think.
All right. But I just love the sort of various beats of this. The whole thing with the master, the rats. I think it just really, really worked. And the as you say, it's not so much. It is kind of a feminist thing, but it's more a case of shining a torch on the oppression of sort of the male characters in this. Even when he goes through something similar, the way things pan out at the end, I thought was sort of really well done, and the final shot as well, it was just awesome. I just thoroughly like this. Some great sort of black humor in it all the way through. When they're trying to dispose of one of the bodies, I thought it was sort of very amusing. The thing with the police. And
the little girl, obviously,
and the little girl as well. Yeah.
I still think the policeman's got the best line in the film when he just says, "Yeah, this isn't my thing, it's yours."
Yeah, it's a domestic disturbance.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. This cinematography in this is also superb, as it needs to be, to sort of show the sort of the different, the various sort of darkness and light sort of elements. And there's one particular bit where Anne is sort of dancing around her living room when she decides to rearrange the furniture on her own and things like this, and she picks up the table lamp and sort of dancing with it, and the way her face lights up with the light from underneath, it really does give us this sort of ghoulish expression on her face. It's just very, very well done. Yeah, this is definitely a highlight for January, and I'm giving this an 8 out of 10. So, Steve, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I'll give it an 8 as well.
And Rich?
Yes, I'm actually going to go 7 on this one, actually.
Setting the bar a bit lower.
Well, I just thinking, would I watch it again? Is kind of my thing of an 8, and I was thinking, no, I think I've seen it. I'm one and done on this one. I liked it. I did really like it, but it's not something I'm inclined to revisit.
I'm kind of hoping. Last year we had a bit of a renaissance for werewolf movies, and I'm kind of hoping you know, off the back of this, maybe we'll get a few more sort of decent vampire movies this year. Nothing like bloody My Heart
Vampires
Won't
in
Beat.
New
Oh,
Orleans.
Vampires in New Orleans. Yes, give me more. I'd rather watch Vampires of New Orleans.
But it didn't have any vampires in it.
Neither did My Heart Won't Beat. You know, so yeah.
Oh, different kind. Yeah.
But no. Give us some proper blood and guts vampires, please. Somebody.
Do you
Anyway,
like that Salem's Lot kind of design with the teeth?
I do. It was different.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it sort of fed into the whole thing with the rats as well, didn't it? You know, so they sort of like, you know, they sort of rodent teeth. But yeah, no, I thought all that worked really well.
Yeah,
I loved her when she went to the dentist as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole Melbourne starts burning. Yeah, that was quite funny.
I mean, I get where you're coming from, Rich. With the master, did look slightly cheap. I'll be honest, but I think that's kind of what they were going for. But it didn't take away from anything, you know.
No, it was really good. To be honest, I didn't realise the master was female until quite late in the film. I didn't realise what they were getting at, and you know, for quite a while, because I thought it was just sort of a particular look that they were going for, and I didn't kind of pick up on the feminine features and stuff.
Yeah.
So 2 8s and a 7 for Jacob's Wife. It is available on DVD now, but if you are a subscriber to the horror channel Shudder, you can pick it up for free. Our next review is Silencio. When her son is kidnapped, Anna must locate a mysterious stone which her grandfather discovered decades earlier and may possess strange powers. I really wanted to like this. It's time travel. It's a mystery. It's all this sort of stuff. But at the heart of it, it's a bunch of very strange performances. I do like the fact that John Noble's in this. I quite liked Fringe, the TV series, which sort of followed on from the X-Files, you know, trying to be X-Files-y kind of thing. That was kind of good. And so it was interesting to see him in this. But I don't know, I just found the pacing a bit too slow. You know, it didn't really sort of go anywhere for long periods. But anyway, Steve, what did you make of this?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you, Mike. It was very weirdly paced, jumping about all over the place. The twist you could see coming a mile off. It just seemed very, very flat. I don't know. It was like nothing really happened. And one thing, you know, if you've got a time travel or mystical or, you know, stone that's got powers and stuff like that, you need to really set the rules of what the powers are. And it doesn't really do anything like that. 1 minute it can send you back in time. It can do this. It can do that. It just didn't sit well with me. And it was just very flat. I mean, I think the script could have done with another polish, to be fair. It was filmed well. It looked good. The performances again were a bit all over the place. I mean, I know you just mentioned, is it Trevor?
John Noble.
John Noble, yeah. I didn't like him. I didn't like him in this at all. I thought he was, I don't know, just something creepy about him. I know he's supposed to be this nice grandfather, but it was unsettling. I really didn't like him. But it's good to see Rupert Graves.
Yes.
I've not seen him in anything really since Sherlock, I don't think. It's been a while. I might have seen him in bits of things, but not really noticed. But again, it was just a bit flat. I don't know. It was just so middle of the road. It was untrue, and nothing really happened.
I think that's that expression sort of nails this one. It is very sort of middle of the road. It's not terrible. Technically, it's well produced film. It's just the script is it's just a sort of meandering pace, and you know what should be, you know, the plot points which should be giving the film some urgency are just flat. You know, they're just there's very little tension. There's one sort of bit towards the end with the sort of torture scene and stuff where things finally happen for a little bit, but other than that, even that ends up not really having any consequence.
Yeah.
But there you go. So what are you going to score this one, Steve?
5.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
2 5s.
Right, like I said, right down the middle.
Before you move on, it's a Mexican film, isn't it? I mean, I didn't get a chance to watch it, but it caught my eye that it was Rupert Graves and everything, but it seems to be a Mexican production.
It's English and Mexican, basically.
Right. Okay. But is it set in Mexico?
It's set in Mexico.
Yes. So it's set in this area. I can't remember. Is it called the Bay of Silence or the Valley of Silence? Yeah.
We watched a film called Bay of Silence, didn't we?
Did we?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
You didn't like it.
The Klaus Bang one.
Olga Kurilenko.
Yeah, it was shy.
Oh yeah. And, well, this apparently is an area of desert in Mexico, which attracts a lot of meteorites, and no sort of radios or phones work in that area. And it's supposedly on the same longitude as the Bermuda Triangle.
Right. Okay.
So it gives a bit of mystery. And to be fair, the early scenes, which were set in 1970, are to do with a rocket which had crash landed in that area after hitting a meteorite or something.
Yeah.
And
I mean, the setup sound, for me, from on the outside, having not seen it, the setup sounds really interesting because the title was quite enigmatic, and the cast is quite interesting. Is it like? So, is it what sort of budget range are we sort of looking at in terms of? Does it feel like there's no actual special?
There's no actual special effects other than the car crash.
Right. Okay.
But it's there's a fair number of extras and things sort of knocking around.
That's about 20 mil,
probably less.
Yeah, is it like like that? Was it? I keep coming back to this film about the couple who go on holiday and they go to visit that guy and they stay in his house and it's a psychological.
Oh, the French one.
I think it was French, and then they shot it in English, and Stephen Brand was the. Is it that sort of atmosphere to it, or?
No, because that's the problem. It doesn't really have any atmosphere.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
it's all very flat, which is a shame. But there you go. Yeah, so I'm sticking with that. 2 5s for Silencio. It will be out on DVD soon. Let's go check it out. Our next review is The Protege. When her mentor and father figure is murdered, a highly skilled operative called Anna must travel back to Vietnam, from where she'd been rescued as a child, to discover who was behind the assassination. This is a bit of a humdinger, guys, and a nice coup for Amazon Prime picking this one up. Directed by Martin Campbell, who'd done such films as GoldenEye in the past and The Foreigner with Jackie Chan. I thoroughly enjoyed this. It is nothing new, obviously. It's another female assassin story. But it's done with aplomb, basically. And highly bolstered with a performance from Michael Keaton as sort of the opposite number. So, Steve, did you get on with this one?
I did and I didn't. I thought the performance was great. Michael Keaton just proving again what a fucking legend he is. I'm sorry, but when he comes out with that line, "What are you going to do? Kill me or fuck me?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll probably fuck you." To be honest, mate, he's so fucking good in this. Maggie Q's great. Sam Jackson's great. The only thing I did find was it was quite confusing. Half the time I didn't have a clue what was going on or why there was the revenge plot. And I'm still not 100% sure, to be honest. I haven't watched it even till the end. But yeah, the fight scenes are great. And it just rollicks along at an absolutely manic speed. And it is really, really enjoyable. It's just a little bit too confusing for my liking. I just think it could have been a little bit clearer. Because you get 3/4 of the way through. And someone pops up, shall we say? I don't want to go into spoilers or anything. And I was just like, what the fuck? Hang on a minute.
Basically, the motivation for the whole movie kind of is negated.
Yeah, exactly. So I still didn't get why it carried on or what they were trying to achieve. So that's my big niggle with it. But apart from that, yeah, it's highly enjoyable.
It is interesting trying to figure out what Samuel L. Jackson's sort of whole setup is. You know, him and Maggie Q. In that, you know, the description in IMDb just calls them assassins, for example. But there is, you know, they do seem to be sort of like white hat assassins, in that they only kill bad guys or people who are wanted for war crimes and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, at the end of the day, assassins and highly paid for it. So how that sort of dovetails into the plot is not quite clear. Anyway, Rich, how did you find the Protege?
It's a big budget, very polished production. I feel a little bit bad for Martin Campbell. I think this is like the second film in a row.
The Foreigner went straight to Netflix, didn't it?
That went to Netflix. This has gone to so he's a British filmmaker, and he can't get his films on cinema screens. Recently, I think they both got scenes shot in British, because the Protege has some scenes shot in London, I think. Yeah, the
bookshop was in London,
and obviously the Foreigner was a lot of that, if not all of it. I can't remember. Was set in London and sort of Ireland. Or did it go to? I can't remember. Anyway, it was a few years ago. I wasn't so struck on the Foreigner. I did like this. I find it really interesting that Maggie Q kind of came from making like Hong Kong. She made like Naked Weapon. In like 2002, and here she is basically doing the same film again, almost. She's done lots of other things, but she's still she's still being returned cast in very similar roles. You could double bill these. I think they'd be a really interesting. I mean, I haven't watched Naked Weapon for a long time, but I think it would be really interesting to watch the two side by side, and you see her you see her like practically 20 years ago, because this came out just at the end of last year, right at the end of last year. 20 years has passed. So interesting to look at from that perspective. Michael Keaton got top billing on the poster and everything, which I think is really unfair.
That's a bit unfair, that is.
Because it's not like Maggie Q is a nobody. As I'm just saying, she's been around for 20 years plus, and has a very solid career, as has been leading lady in many a film, as well as sort of high profile roles in
Mission Impossible 3.
Mission Impossible again, which is kind of basically the same thing as this again, all that same kind of stuff, which she can do. Live Free or Die Hard, obviously she did as well. So she's paid her dues and that, and she can still she can do all this stuff as well as anyone else, basically.
And she can she can stand toe to toe with Michael Keaton and not be acted off the screen. That's a plus in her favor as well. I
did think it was. I don't know if you got this, but for me, the whole the vibe between her character and Michael Keaton's character was like a complete echo of Batman Returns. All their scenes are like him, are like Batman and Catwoman for me. And I don't know if that was something intentional, that he was sort of, I kind of liked, because that was one of the key, the spiky, relationship between those two characters who were essentially in conflict. So I did like that about this, because I do like Batman Returns. Yes, Michael Keaton's really good. I loved seeing Patrick Malahide in there, because it's like, why is he here? So he turns up in the most random places sometimes. I did think when he came on, I was like, he's not going to be in this for very long, is he? Because he's one of those character actors who he's not going to be like the big bad of the movie. And there's some nice little twists there. And also we got Florin, I'm going to butcher his name, Florin Purschitz Jr, who's a Romanian actor, done a couple of films with Steven Seagal. He was like a Steven Seagal villain in End of a Gun, I think it was. So I quite enjoyed seeing him turn up as kind of a main heavy kind of character. And I didn't notice her, but I checked the IMDb. Tanya Keller played Anna's mother when she was younger. So that's quite interesting. She's kind of a interesting, stunt woman and actress. Done quite a lot of stuff, including short films that we've seen. So yeah, there's lots to recommend here, I think.
Absolutely. No, this is, it's very familiar ground. But it's very well
familiar
done.
ground.
It is, yeah, I know. And the thing is, we got more of this stuff to come. We still haven't had Gunpowder Milkshake released in this country yet, and now
Yes,
there's the. Really? When?
Yeah, Gunpowder Milkshake came out last
Went
year.
to Sky.
See, that's why.
Yeah,
it would have come out.
Sky.
I don't know if it came out in cinemas, but they usually put them in cinemas. But with COVID and everything, I'm not sure if it actually got in. But yeah, it did. It was quite a high-profile release about August last year, I think.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, pass me by because I don't have Sky. But we also got the 355 currently doing the rounds with very sort of mixed reviews. But it might be the death knell for the genre for a while at least. But we'll see. But this is very, very well done indeed. So definitely go check it out.
Yeah, I didn't mention Samuel L. Jackson, but yeah, you get your Samuel L. Jackson fix in this. Definitely, he's like properly Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
So he gets some good scenes and stuff. It's kind of a three-hand. It's kind of those three people, but there's a number of other supporting players and that. But yeah, it's you can't go wrong. Big budget. Martin Campbell. Sorry,
Martin Campbell. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If you got Prime, definitely check it out.
Absolutely. So scores on the doors, guys. Steve?
7.
And Rich?
I'm going to give it a 7. One negative is that I think it's way too long. I think they really sort of spin it out. It's like it's nearly 2 hours long, and it didn't need to be that long.
Yeah, probably. I'm tempted to give it an 8. Tempted, mainly for like 2 scenes. One is what happens when she goes to visit that industrialist guy in his office, and
Patrick Malahide.
Yeah, that's him. Yeah, and the other is the whole shebang when she actually gets captured, and so Michael Keaton sort of second in command thinks he can do a better job. All that bit I thought was really, really good. So I'm tempted. In fact, I am. I'm going to give it an 8. If this is released on Blu-ray or DVD, I'd pick it up and it'll be part of my collection. So there you go. 2 7s and an 8 for The Protege, currently showing on Amazon Prime in the UK. Go check it out. Our next review is The Serpent. Lucinda Kavsky is a CIA operative working for a very covert division. When she agrees to replace a colleague on a secret mission, she is exposed to a nefarious assassination plot which will remain dormant for years before activated. I'm going to throw this straight over to Steve. What are your thoughts on The Serpent?
Right, I'm going to be quite kind and say absolute dog shit. I'm sorry, but it was terrible. It's looking into it. Looking at it, it's a vanity project for Giacoba.
Yep.
I presume. Stars in it, directs it, writes the theme tune, sings the theme tune, all that kind of shit.
Doesn't do her own dialogue though. Although I don't necessarily think that was her choice. To be honest, I don't think anybody did. It was that badly dubbed, all of it. And it's just awful. The plot's ridiculous. The CGI is absolutely terrible. The performances are awful. I think the guy who was actually shooting it was either on, remember the old vibrating things that you're supposed to lose weight when you turn it on?
because the camera just cannot keep still. Every second it's moving. And I don't think there's one shot in the whole thing that is still. I mean, there's one bit where I think it's supposed to be following a car above, like, a bird's eye view of the car. And it can't even keep the car in the middle of the screen. The car's going from to the back of the screen, to the front of the screen, to the left. Everything about it is just inept. It was absolutely terrible. All of it.
On one level, Steve, I totally agree with you. I was going to be incredibly snarky about this because I was watching it last night. I think I fell asleep at one point. No, that's not actually the film's fault. It's just me sort of fatigued with it. But I was going to be really snarky and sort of start off by going, Steve, what the hell did we just watch? But the thing is, I've been binge watching Red Eye reviews on YouTube. And they've been covering all of Steven Seagal's films, like from the start all the way through. And I'm sort of like in kind of the middle part of those. Right. So things like End of the Gun, Submerged, Out for a Kill, all this sort of stuff. And as inept as Giacobbe's film is, for a first attempt, it's still better than a lot of Seagal's stuff. And Seagal's movies are produced by people who are supposedly good at this and more experienced and worked on other films. So, okay, that's a pretty low bar. But at the same time, I'm thinking there's an element of hope that she may actually sort of develop to be a reasonably decent DTV sort of director at some stage with some coaching, in the right hands. This isn't it. This isn't it. No, but this is as a starter for 10. This is it's low, but at the same time, as I said, compared to some of the other films we've seen by more seasoned directors, I think for somebody who's sort of finding her way and actually managed to sort of put together an actual film, as sort of muddled and confusing as it is at times, I don't hate it. I actually don't hate it. Rich, maybe you can find some middle ground between us.
No, I think that's really that is interesting. The sort of comparison to some of the Steven Seagal films. I think you've made some really interesting points there. I mean, in a lot of ways, it is as muddled and confusing, and funnily enough, dubbed as a lot of those sort of mid to late, or sort of early 2000s. The films he made mainly in the 2000s are a lot like that. Yeah, I was curious about this one. Yeah, a vanity project from first time filmmaker, first time leading. She's done some acting, but this is her sort of putting herself front and center. She clearly wants to be Angelina Jolie, and some of the scenes, I think some of the scenes do work to an extent. But in a very formulaic fashion. This is kind of another film in sort of that same kind of genre as the Protege to an extent. It was very much in a rush, and I actually I watched the first 20 minutes and then I rewatched because I was so confused, and I was thinking I've got to go back and like take notes and look at this properly. It kind of wrong-footed me at the start because the title comes up immediately. There's no sort of lead into the title. It's literally boom, the title, and off you go. And then there's some guys dealing with a crime scene. There's a bit of jokiness and stuff in a rather inappropriate manner. The guy gets a phone call, which was a bit confusing, and then he goes out to his car, and then Giacobbe turns up in his car and just sort of, he's a bit taken aback, but the way the scene unfolds, every moment I was like, well, hang on, why is this happening? I was like, what's that? Yeah. It's like, why is he not taken her into custody and gone down to the station, all this sort of stuff? And he goes, they say, oh yeah, let's go for a drive, and he talks to her, and then they literally cut. They do like a time jump when they're in the car, So like to a few minutes later, where he's basically saying, oh yeah, well, we got to stop, we got to sort out this problem with these children that are going to explode. And yeah, I believe you. I believe everything you're saying. And I was like, on what basis? On what basis is he believing that she's dealing with this bizarre thing involving?
Because of the van full of heavies which pulled up behind them as soon as they started driving.
For the very exciting car chase, which seems to have just taken place on like a little narrow stretch of road, and yeah, it was like I was like, and then all of a sudden after that scene, I'm going to elaborate on this a bit. So they're being chased by this guy. He's leaning out the car, shooting at them. Their car, apparently the brakes fail or whatever, but they managed to stop the car. The bad guy gets out and literally just stands at the window holding the gun. And he's just been shooting at them like crazy. And now that they've stopped, he's just sort of nervously sort of twitching around. And then somebody shoots him. And then the CIA director turns up out of nowhere, looking all disheveled, with a massive gun. And I was like, why is the CIA director in the field, shooting at, and that's never explained. But then they go back. Then suddenly they're in a meeting. And they talk to this guy who says, as they said, what do you want? It's like, I want absolute effing power. And was like, oh God, it's so badly written. And so we know this is the bad guy kind of thing. And then it becomes this extended flashback that's kind of all been like in media res kind of thing. And yeah, the way it unfolds is just, it's very confusing. I don't think it's not Code of Cain or Warrior Savitri level. Unfortunately, in terms of a bad movie,
it's not so bad. It's enjoy,
I think to an extent, I think you've got to. I think if you're a bad movie enthusiast, I think you've got to see it. I mean,
yeah.
If I can't. Is there another film made by? Apart from like Michael, we got like Michael Flatley's film that's never been released. But that had things like, he put some money in that. He got like Eric Roberts and whatever. This one is like, it's a Russian supermodel.
That's what this is missing. This is missing a day's work from Eric Roberts.
Yeah, I mean, and this is exactly the kind of thing.
I kind of expected like fucking Steve Guttenberg to turn up. Like he did in that original gangster. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Class.
Something like that. What about the? But, I mean, go on.
No, but there's another thing that she gets hold of one of these kids who's got this. It turns out it's a nanotechnology. She's got a chip in her head. No explanation of how that's going to actually cause a big explosion or whatever. But then again, there is a precedent for that because Jean-Claude Van Damme did Knockoff, where the rivets on jeans were explosive and stuff. But so she basically forces this guy to do surgery, complex neurosurgery, and she's 1 minute she says, I'll be there to assist you. I'm going to force you to do this, but I'll be there to assist you. And the very next scene, she's like, I've got to leave you to it. I'm going. So he's got no one out. And then he's just done this really difficult surgery to extract this explosive device completely by himself in the most non-surgical looking room you've seen. It's like just an empty room, basically. The budget limitations are apparent throughout. But it is amusing in places. It's got, for the wrong reasons, obviously, but it's got, I did like, the framing of some of the action. I thought, if they shot it, they got some things. I mean, there's weird things like, there's like a dream sequence action scene. So there's like a scene where she fights some people down a corridor or whatever, but it's got nothing to do with anything. It's like she was unconscious at the time.
Yeah.
And then so here's the other thing. So she went on this mission, then she ended up getting arrested, which I don't really even remember actually happening. And all of a sudden she's in prison for like 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in full makeup. And she like escapes in like the most ridiculous way. She literally just walks out of prison. Basically.
No, she doesn't. No,
Well, what did she do?
They poisoned the book that she was sort of flicking through. So she licked her fingers as she's turning the pages.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks she's dead. They take her to the morgue, put her in one of those sort of slab things.
Yeah.
And then she walks out.
Then she walks out. Yeah, but she's not made. She just sort of gets up and walks out of the prison.
Yeah.
And there was a similar scene to that. It's like, okay, she's got this girl that she's looking after and trying to protect. So they go to a spa to like get in disguise, to get changed. You know, they're being pursued, so they go to the spa and whatever, and they say, "Oh, look, put these different clothes on or whatever." And again, they basically walk out past the bad guys, looking exactly the same. There's not even really a disguise; like it's a hat.
And the sunglasses. Don't forget the sunglasses.
I just like, they're not going to recognize this little girl because she's wearing a hat. And they're looking for a woman and a little girl,
but she had been wearing.
They're not going to think to actually stop them.
Yeah, but she had been wearing a black wig.
Oh yeah, so, well yeah. There is that.
Yeah. You know the bit that got me right is when he's doing the operation on the girl, and all the soldiers turn up outside or whatever, and she drops a grenade and blows the whole of the bottom floor out with this grenade. And then 2 seconds later, all the soldiers walk back in again, and there's no damage whatsoever. All the doors are still there. The windows are still fine. Nothing's been blown up whatsoever.
Is that the bit where she also goes on the, is that the bit where she goes on the zip line as well?
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Jesus Christ.
That's great. I think this has got. I mean, this has got value. This has got entertainment value. It's completely confusing.
It's got entertainment value, but it's not a good film.
No, it's terrible. It is really bad.
Awful.
But given the choice, Steve, between watching this or watching the latest Bruce Willis film, which would you choose?
You can't say that, mate. That's just wrong.
I know. It's like choosing between the bubonic plague and Ebola, isn't it? It's like which
I mean, thing is, at least.
But this is the thing. Yeah. I mean,
although in a similar vein to that, in a similar vein to Apex, I'm sure there's a scene in this where a woman comes in and she says, "Why are you sitting in the dark?" And I'm like, "But he's not in the dark. The lights are on." It's like he's in a well lit office.
Yeah. You know what? I think a lot of this is it's whoever edited it is as much as to fault as it was
edited with a butcher's cleaver.
It is.
I mean, it really was.
Yeah. There's one bit when was it a bar or a strip joint or something? It was. She goes into a bar and she kills this guy. That conversation was hilarious as well. And she kills him, and it cuts sort of later on when it's a crime scene, and you get like 2 seconds of it, and then it cuts straight back outside to like the detective arriving, and it's like, why did he? Because nothing happened in that 2 seconds at all. Why did he feel the need?
Other bits, I mean, but there's other bits where there's something is about to happen, and it literally just cuts away and goes to something else. It's just like it's in such a rush. It's like, right, we're about to go on this mission. Oh, we're not going to see. Oh, here's another thing. What about the overacting guy on the plane who was like, they were saying, he's got like this allergy or something, that never went anywhere. He's just hysterical, and then he turns up again at the end.
Is that the doctor?
Yeah, scientist. Absolutely terrible. It's like,
he was.
I don't know. It's like he's been on fucking 10 grams of whiz or something. The way he's acting at the end.
But it doesn't go anywhere, does it? I mean, it's like they introduce these things, and it's just like happening, and then they're going on this mission, but then they don't really show them. All of a sudden, the mission's over, and then she gets like arrested. It really reminds me. It does. Of like Mike said, some of those Steven Seagal movies from like Today You Die does a lot of this kind of stuff. It's like, so all of a sudden he's in prison. All of a sudden he's escaped. It's like the plot keeps sort of changing. Or they introduce these elements and then they don't actually resolve them. And this film ends in a really weird way.
It's like they're given a choice budget-wise, isn't it? It's like, well, either you can do this whole thing sort of rescuing kids on this boat, or you can defeat the bad guy. You can't have both. So one of them was like incredibly rushed. They could have easily gone the other way. So had a big fight with the bad guy at the end, and then someone goes, "Oh yeah, we rescued the kids," and that'll be it.
The bad guys' scenes are like basically this. They're shot in like this really nondescript sort of like Plan 9 from Outer Space.
It looks like my current office is what it.
Yeah, it could have been.
My home office.
All those guys, all those scenes were shot there. Just get Eric Roberts to do that. It would have immediately made it a bit more exciting and interesting, even though he's actually not interacting with anyone except for the hysterical guy. The dialogue being written by say Gia Scott. The dialogue.
She wrote the script.
Yeah, she wrote the script. I mean, weird things like some of the way the characters talk, it just doesn't feel natural. It feels like. I mean, maybe it's an English as a second language thing. She's Russian. She's learned English, and then she's writing a script in English and using things slightly incorrectly or something. I don't know. It just doesn't. It's got this weird flavour to it. And it's just some of it's just mad, and I just think it's very. Yeah. It's not mad enough to be say an all-timer.
It's getting there. It's
close. It's like close. A runner-up, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's our first crazy film of the year. Put it that way. But
what about the music? Sorry, the music just weird themes that just don't fit any scene that they're in. It's like nothing connects. The dots just do not connect on any of it. Anyway, I could ramble on about this.
We could, but this is it's our first film behind the camera. It's terrible. I think we all agree. We're not going to sugarcoat this. It's a bad film. But at the same time,
there's a drinking game. There's a drinking game in it.
There's a drinking game, definitely. But at the same time, people have made careers making this sort of film, and I'm just hope people's careers have ended up making this kind of film. Seagal and Willis. I'm looking at you guys. So I think the only way is up. Really, I'm hoping. I'd like to see her do another film. I really would.
Why is a Russian
with a bit of coaching? Who's that guy? Who's that guy that did the Black Rose thing?
Black Rose.
The Black Rose. It was the Russian detective who comes to America on a case.
Oh, Alexander Nevsky.
Nevsky, that's it. Yeah. Maybe team up with him. That would be.
Oh,
that would be impressive. That would be awesome.
I was thinking she's Russian, although they dub her with this English accent.
Yeah, which is weird because she's supposed to be American.
Well, she's supposed to be working for the CIA.
Yeah.
Her name, her first name is definitely supposed to be Russian. Or her last name is anyway. I think she's definitely supposed to be like a Russian, but her voice, they've dubbed her voice. But why is she working? It doesn't. They don't kind of fit it.
No,
I mean, you could say that for any Arnold Schwarzenegger movie,
or Seagal movie.
He's Australian. He's Australian, or Jean-Claude Van Damme. They're all from other countries and they work for the CIA or whatever. So fair enough. But I'll give them that. Okay, fair enough. But just I don't know. Just
do you know what was weird? What was weird about this particular episode? Well, no, but this episode in particular that we're recording tonight, the first 3 films that we reviewed, all the female protagonists were called Anna. Or Anne, variations of Anne. And I was like, when I was sort of putting this together, trying to remember her name, I'm thinking, please be Anne. That'd be so funny.
That's another film that this kind of get confused with, because there was that other film called.
With Olga Kurylenko.
No, the one with Sasha Luss, I'm thinking, that was actually called Anna.
Well, there you go. Well, there's another film called The Serpent. With Olga Kurylenko, which I think was based on a Harlan Coben novel.
Oh yes,
it was a French one. That was really good as well, actually.
Yeah, I'd like to see that actually.
Okay,
so scores.
We eventually we're going to have to score this. So Steve,
3,
and Rich.
Yeah.
I'd say it's terrible, but it does offer quite a lot of entertainment value if you approach it from the right angle. So I'm going to have to give it a 6 for that.
A 6. I'm going to go with 5, which is about. I think that's what we gave the last Seagal. So not the last Seagal, the last Willis movie that we covered. Because I would rather watch this or something like it than another Willis performance. You know, as crazy and as nonsensical as this was, it was entertaining, you know. So
and like you say, it's made by a number of people. Well, as far as we know, the sort of key players are very inexperienced.
Exactly.
As opposed to the Bruce Willis movies where you've got very, you know, very good people, very experienced people in front and behind the camera.
Exactly. Seasoned people working
no
on that film.
Really.
No. But here's somebody sort of saying, I'm going to make something with my money. Here we go. You know, whereas other people are going, I've got a great idea for a tax break. Yeah. But there you go. So there we have a bit of a spread. Was it a 3 you gave it, Steve?
Yeah.
A 3, a 5, and a 6 for The Serpent. You will find this on Amazon Prime. Go check it out. Our short shot this week is Fueled. When her husband is brutally murdered, a young woman becomes obsessed with tracking down the killer, but her desperation leads to committing desperate acts. Okay, so the first thing we need to point out is this is an animated short, and all the characters are very little animals, which doesn't sort of like detract from the sort of grimness of the story. Rich, you are our curator for short films. What attracted you to this one?
I was just struck by the look of the artwork, basically. On the I just saw a thumbnail essentially, and I just thought it had a very interesting look to it. And when I watched it, it does have kind of an almost like a Japanese anime kind of feel to it, but it's you know, it's kind of dark Zootopia essentially. It does it, you know, it's very, I mean, from the very start, you know, you see the first scene. It's what's like 9 minutes long. You see like the first scene of like you know, she's wrapped in a blanket and whatever, she's clearly traumatized or whatever. You immediately know that the signifiers are there that this is not a story for children. And then the way, because it's, you know, you can it's pretty much dialogue free, but the way it unfolds visually, you can see where, you know, it's kind of a revenge story, but it goes in a completely different, it sort of takes it to a certain point and then sort of turns. And I thought that was quite interesting. I'll confess, I would have liked it to have gone like a full revenge movie route. That would have been, that I would have found that quite fascinating. But it is, you know, it's making its own statement about the nature of, you know, anger and, you know, seeking vengeance and whatever. And I think, you know, it doesn't go down the sort of traditional. It's not an action movie. It's not even a thriller, really. It's kind of, it's almost like an incidental violence that occurs. That I think it plays out. I think it's a really interesting little film.
Yeah, it's very sort of Coen Brothers in the way it sort of develops, and you know, the tone of it, I think. Yeah, it's, the animation's really good. You know, even so much as you know, when she's trying to put the key in the ignition and she kind of misses on the first turn, you know, and puts it in, you know, it's just sort of little nuances like that sort of like really sort of help build the emotion of it. Yeah, it is, I mean, enjoyable, entertaining, probably not the right words, but compelling to watch for sure. And yeah, it really does sort of play on the idea of, like, you know, the how your grief and anger in that sort of situation can sort of cloud your judgment. So we don't score the shorts, but we certainly recommend you check them out. And if you have a look in the footnotes, you'll find a link to this. That is Fueled on YouTube. Go check it out. Our DTV throwback this week is Savaged. Whilst traveling across America's Southwest, a deaf-mute woman called Zoe is abducted, raped, and eventually murdered by a gang of ruthless white supremacists. However, her body is discovered by a shaman who attempts to revive her, but instead her body is possessed by a furious Apache warrior whose own death was at the hands of the ancestor of the gang's leader. Okay, I make no qualms about the fact that I love this film, Rich, and I've been sort of mentioning it for quite a while. So now that you finally watched it, what do you make of it?
I wasn't initially taken with it. It's got a very rough, low budget look to it, and some of the scenes look quite over. I don't know if it's overexposed or whatever, but the it doesn't quite look right. But there's a moment towards the beginning where a character is being pursued, and he basically gets run down. And I just thought, considering what a low budget film this is, that was a very well executed visual effects scene, because it was just like it looked like it had been done for real. I thought, it was just done. I mean, it's very quick, but I thought it was executed so well. And then, yes, there's all the very nasty rape. It's a rape revenge story thing, which is it's both. It is kind of uncomfortable. It's a very unfortunately a very well established genre in its own right,
It is,
subgenre, which is kind of makes you a bit uncomfortable, especially these days. But it's kind of in the vein of I Spit on Your Grave, or They Call a Macho Woman, or Ravage, which we had recently. There's still quite a lot in this, but I think again, a bit like that visual effects thing, there's moments that sort of kick in that really blew me back. I mean, the thing is, it's a horror movie, but when the vengeance scene starts, let's say, it's really, I wouldn't say it's an action movie, but it is more of an action movie. The way they're actually, it is more like an action revenge film than a horror film. I would say, even though it doesn't feel like an action film, but the sequence, there's some really imaginative stuff. The visual, again, the effects work I thought was great. There's a bit where it's the way it's shot and cut. It's like she attacks this guy with a bottle, and it's like, whoa, it's like really severe impact. The guy gets a pool cue through his eye socket, and there's this bit, she's pulling this guy's intestines out. It's like almost Peter Jackson-ish kind of level. But yeah, so those scenes, all those sort of OTT action revenge kind of scenes really engaged me quite a lot. And I thought actually the characters, it was quite interesting, because you end up spending more time with the bad guys than the heroine, because she's kind of the supernatural avenging force, sort of thing, coming after them. And it's not like, although we do spend a few scenes with her, sort of trying to figure things out, what's going on, the pain she's going through and that, but a lot of it is kind of you're with the group. It's like that slasher movie kind of is in that way, that you're spending all this time with these guys, wondering what the hell's going on, and then being picked off one by one. It's which is weird, because these are characters you're not sympathetic to at all. But I thought that the performances were good. I think the only other thing I wanted to say was there's an interesting, I don't know if this was by design when you structured the show, Mike, but there is a very interesting dovetail between this and Jacob's Wife, in that they're both basically stories of sort of quite meek women, becoming very empowered through this kind of supernatural sort of horror kind of thing, in very different ways. I mean, in Jacob's Wife, there's not real pain from what she's going in this. She's going through hell. She's just having such an awful time, and that manifests itself in various ways. But I think what I felt undermined the film slightly was, as in the first one, the source of the empowerment is another woman, and in this one, she's possessed by a man, which I thought kind of that takes the edge off. I think as that was a negative for me. I think if that had been a woman inhabited by the spirit of a female warrior from the past or whatever, I think that would have felt more appropriate for me in terms of the sort of story they were telling. But yeah, I definitely saw what you liked about it.
The thing that sold me on this film, I saw a clip of that first murder in the bar, and it did sort of like, take me back, basically.
It's like The Guest. You know how The Guest stuff, just stuff. I mean, again, there's a scene in a bar, and it's just like completely takes you by surprise.
Yeah.
You're just not expecting it to be like that. It's like that's how it was.
It was, exactly. It was full on. The moves that she pulls, with the bottle and stuff. The thing with the pool cue, and that guy had it coming. Bloody
absolutely.
Swastika tattoo on his neck, for fuck's sake. Yeah, I thought that was amusing. But yeah, you're right. It does take you back. The makeup effects are great because, she's deteriorating. Sort of bits are falling off and things, and obviously
it's the stuff with the maggots. That's really clever.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff. This is a bit of a long reach, but the film that this reminded me of the most, and for its energy in its sort of independent sort of drive as anything, was The Terminator.
Interesting. I thought you were going to say Evil Dead.
No, I think there are certain parallels with The Terminator in the way her body is sort of deteriorating and stuff as she's sort of going on.
No, I see what you're saying. And The Terminator itself was a slasher movie dressed up as a sci-fi movie.
Exactly. And this has a sort of bit of a subversive streak, as you say, because we're, she's kind of the hero, and these guys are definitely the bad guys.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, we're, as you said, we're sort of spending time with them, sort of seeing how evil and icky they are, sort of thing.
And along the way, we also spend time with her
fiance,
and because he's she manages to, there was the whole thing about her making the call, which I was thinking, how is she making a call if she's deaf? But
he does explain that he is basically Mr. Exposition, in the film. He's the one sort of setting up things and explaining things, which again, as you say, otherwise would be plot holes.
Well, it kind of reminded me of the structure of, like that's like maybe like a psycho influence. How you got the investigator come in and sort of looking at things and stuff, and he's like trying to find her and find. So a bit like we had that Wrong Turn reboot, didn't we, recently, which essentially did the same thing, but with I think it was her father, following on and trying to follow the breadcrumbs and whatnot. And there's there's emotion, there's pathos there between in this film. There's a lot of interesting stuff the way that unfolds.
I think it does a very good job of selling that sort of human sort of aspect of it, and sort of keeping her sort of grounded, as it were, instead of just turning her into sort of a mindless killing machine possessed by an ancient Apache. She is still sort of grounded with her bond with a fiance who gets sort of pulled into stuff.
The funny thing was, a few weeks ago we looked at the film Savage with Olivia Gruner, which did touch on a lot of the same kind of things, except in that case, it was aliens or whatever that giving him the powers or whatever. But the source plot of the film into this one person is transformed. It made a very sort of primal vengeance sort of Terminator-like figure. It's the same thing. I mean, the titles even obviously are very similar, but the execution is completely different. But I just thought that was really interesting that they both take these similar ideas. I mean, this is touching on lots of different things, but like you say, specifically like something like a slasher movie or rape revenge and whatever. But it does stand out, I think, from it's very different because it's got that sort of supernatural element, which it doesn't lean into heavily. She's not flying around or something.
Well,
she's
not much.
For the most she levitates.
There's one particular goofy moment where she's given these weapons, which is a bit of a goofy sort of CGI effect, but it's beside the point. I think the sort of the rape side of it. think it was last year, I had to watch all of the I Spit on Your Grave movies, all of them. So that's the original, the remake, and its 2 sequels, and then the remake, no, the sequel to the original, which is a lot, And by the way, I actually recommend I Spit on Your Grave 3. So
the DTV one.
The DTV one. It's actually pretty good, and it's got things to say about sort of how to handle material. I must admit, I was quite impressed with it. Anyway,
I didn't think that in this case. I was a bit worried about the rate, but it wasn't too heavy.
Exactly.
They cut away. They cut away.
It's nasty. I mean, so there's nothing graphic about it, but at the same time, they do go out of their way to make it look as nasty as possible. The fact that it's been tied to the bed with barbed wire. Is
when she pulls herself free. Oh, God.
Yes. Steve. He didn't get a chance to watch this but he's quite squeamish. He's with certain things. I don't think he'd have got on with this at certain moments. But there you go. And that ending is, I mentioned Terminator. That ending just sort of is straight out of T2, basically. The way it ends, I thought it was superb. I thoroughly enjoyed this. Don't really have anything else to say on it. But the only other thing, just a sort of a bit of triv, is it's called Savaged here, which was the original title.
Yeah.
When it was released in America, they had to change it to Avenged.
Oh, okay.
Because they were a bit. I'm not sure if it was because Savages had come out more or less at the same time, the Oliver Stone one, or if it was because they're a bit worried about sort of getting flack. Oh, you think all sort of First Nation people are sort of savages, do you? That sort of thing. But no, I really like this. I think it's got a real independent sort of streak to it. Real oomph going for it. It is nasty. Even if you take the rape out of it, there's a lot of sort of blood and guts going on in this one. Some really good sort of special effects work.
It's very low budget, but it's punching above its weight.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are one or two moments. I think there's a car crash, which looks incredibly fake sort of CGI. But the thing is, I don't mind bad CGI if it's obvious that they're stretching themselves to do something. If a big budget movie had bad CGI, then it's got no excuse. But I think if you're doing your best, sort of really want to sort of push this. Okay, it's lacking a bit of polish. That's not going to take me out of the film. Basically, I can accept that. But there you go. So this is currently on Amazon Prime. I heartily recommend it. Trigger warning if you're not inclined to sort of sit through a rape scene, then you might want to fast forward a bit. But it's a cracking film. Really recommend it. And that is the end of this week's show. Steve unfortunately had some technical issues, which is why he dropped off the call. But he'll be back next week, I'm sure. So thanks, Rich, for sticking through to the end.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Don't forget to check out our Facebook and Twitter pages at the DTV Digest. Also check out the Short Shots, where Rich puts a link to a new short film every night around about 8 p.m. Other than that, thank you for listening. Tune in next time.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.